to the Rest Stop. My name is Brad Restituto. Joining me as always, Spencer the Wiz. Come to you every Tuesday and Thursday, live 9 o'clock Pacific time here in Las Vegas. And you can join the show live on our twitch.tv channel. Go to www.twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football or download the Twitch app and search there. And if you missed the show live and you want to check it out on podcast form, you can go to Audio Boom, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and just search Landry Football Conference Call or LandryFootball.com and search the Rest Stop. We'll be underneath there, and you can check out our podcast anytime. And, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can search Brad the Believer. We post the full show in its entirety every day. We're on episode 30 tonight. Got a good one in store for you today. A lot of NBA action as we're getting closer and closer to the start of this NBA season that will start on Christmas Day. And some big-time moves in free agency and a short break for these teams, but trying to get ready for this shortened season as we're still kind of in the middle of the pandemic here, moving from 2020 into 2021. And, of course, the NFL season. They've found a way to get through 12 weeks of the season, and they're still plugging along. Myself and Spencer the Wiz will give out our NFL picks against the spread this week, so stay tuned for that. And we're only 22 days away from Christmas, guys. This year's almost over. 28 days away from 2021, bringing in the new year. Hopefully, as a whole in this country, we'll have a little bit of better luck on our side as maybe getting a second stimulus package in, having a vaccine readily available for the beginning of 2021 so we can kind of nip this in the bud and start to move towards the reality that we knew before this whole COVID-19. And that's, of course, what we're all looking for as Americans in this country and as human beings all across the globe moving forward. Spencer the Wiz joining me as always. Follow him on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. And, of course, he does his live radio show here in Vegas every Friday night called Delivering Sports and his YouTube channel, Blue Milk Boys Gaming. Spence, tell the listeners out there how they can find all the great work that you do across the landscape of Las Vegas here in town.
Yeah, so I'm trying to homogenize my brand. I'm trying to go everywhere, and that's in one spot, I should say. That's Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. And I just wanted to mention briefly is this is obviously also the Delivering Sports show just for this special episode. Brad is basically guest hosting for me, although I'm guest hosting with him on his show. I'm in the middle of studying right now as we speak. When this show's live on the radio, I'll be studying right here at the board while I replay this episode. And we go back to the live show next week when I graduate, and I look forward to that. So that's what I got going on.
All right. Well, that's great. So Delivering Sports / the Rest Stop here tonight in the beginning of December. Spence, let's kick it off with the big trade in the NBA as Russell Westbrook is on the move. The Houston Rockets send him over to the Washington Wizards. In exchange, John Wall comes back to Houston and a protected first-round pick. I've heard a lot of information on who won this trade. Spence, I'm going to start off with you. Do you think there's a winner in this trade, and if so, why?
Sorry about that. I was cutting out. But I am going to say that there is no winner in this trade. They both have supermax contracts. I almost want to just say the Wizards straight up lost because in 2 years, Russell Westbrook will be making $48 million. It's like 47 and change. So, I mean, I guess they get the first-round pick out of it, but it is Houston's first-round pick, and if James Harden does stay with the Rockets, who, of course, it's not on their top priority to trade him, they're going to win some ball games. They're going to go to the playoffs, so it's not that great. What does John Wall do for the Rockets? I don't know. I guess he makes them fast, but Westbrook was fast too. These guys are pretty similar in playing style. The real risk is Westbrook or John Wall hasn't played in an extremely long time, so you just don't know what you're going to get out of him. I don't think he has a very high motor, in my opinion. And I think he cares more about the fame than he does the game. And he's never shown that he's able to live up to the moments. He's played with Bradley Beal, and he wasn't able to do anything in the Eastern Conference his entire career. So I don't think that fixes any of the issues in Houston. Now, if they trade James Harden and they're looking for a new direction, okay, then we're talking about two totally different things. So I guess we'll have to see how this develops as the season goes on and what the Rockets decide to do with the newly acquired John Wall.
Spence, earlier today on channel 86, Sirius XM, I was listening to the NBA channel. Give and Go was the show with Rick Kamla and Antonio Daniels, former NBA player. And Antonio Daniels was saying by a landslide, he thought Washington won this trade. Considers, which I'll agree let's agree for the argument, Westbrook, first ballot Hall of Famer, reuniting with Scott Brooks, head coach of the Washington Wizards, in addition to the backcourt of Bradley Beal. John Wall, who hasn't played since 2018, he's convinced that Washington hands down wins his trade. I'll tell you why I do not agree with that. I can't agree until Russell Westbrook, his style of play, his such negative or adverse decision-making, shot-taking, I just can't jump on board with that. Bradley Beal isn't necessarily a ball-dominant guard. He can score with the best of them. Until Russell Westbrook decides he's going to be a more effective defender and limit his shots and be more of a distributor and utilize his athleticism, he hasn't done anything for me. He hasn't carried a team. He hasn't won anywhere. And for the sake of this argument, also on this show I was listening to on SiriusXM NBA channel was saying that James Harden may be the problem. He was saying that Dwight Howard has left Houston, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, and that James Harden shrinks come playoff time, which is an interesting argument. Spence, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this is maybe a James Harden problem, that so many superstars have kind of came and gone very quickly when it comes to teaming with James Harden?
I would say the blame goes on the Houston organization just in general. No team should eliminate the center position. We've known that, and they've known that for about 2 years now, and they've ignored the problem. Now this offseason, a new GM comes in. He's trying to say that DeMarcus Cousins is going to be the solution, which of course he's not going to be. But still, at least they look a little more like a real team now. And maybe they should have stuck with Dwight Howard, although we know he is definitely past his prime. Russell Westbrook was never going to work out for Houston. You're talking about an inefficient system in and of itself based on high volume of shots. And when you have a guy like Russell Westbrook who is not efficient at all, Sony shot 29% from the three last year on a team that shoots mostly threes, you're not going to get any benefit out of that. And let's not forget that with Chris Paul, they were, I don't know, a couple of games out of going to the finals. So it's just, I don't know what you're going to get out of John Wall. What you should get is a playoff team here that looks a little more coherent than they were last season. But that's assuming that John Wall plays up to his abilities. But when it comes to James Harden, it hasn't come out that he's a bad locker room guy. So I'm going to reserve the idea that he is the problem in Houston.
Spence, put on your GM cap for a second. How would you mold Russell Westbrook in your liking? What would you do to maximize this guy's athletic ability and try to make him into a top 10 efficient NBA player? How would you do it?
Well, theoretically, they do have the system in place in Washington to do that. They just signed Bertans to way too much money, but I guess the idea is now that you have Russell Westbrook, he's going to find him. You have a high-volume scorer, efficient scorer in Bradley Beal. So if you can convince him to rely on these guys to an extent, Westbrook has not had that in his career. Maybe in the when it comes to Houston, he did because he's surrounded by shooters, but that's a jacked up system. It's not a real basketball system. When he was solo in his MVP season, averaged a triple-double, you go down that roster and there was nobody for him to pass to. And I think he internalized that and he left it on the court. So maybe Scott can get back to him, although it's not like he was efficient when he was with the Thunder. But that's what you got to do. You got to tell him Bradley Beal and Bertans are going to be the primary scorers of this team, and you can facilitate to them, you can rebound, and you can play defense while giving all the effort that you want. And hopefully that's how it works out.
Spence, can you imagine the type of player Russell Westbrook could be if he was just completely unselfish, moved without the ball? His athletic ability, his ability to make backdoor cuts to the basket, even backdoor lobs his way because he's so athletic. I just see so much potential in this guy, and that's why it's been so hard for me to relinquish the potential that he has being on any team. But he's just consistently showed, not only me, but all of us, that no matter what team he's on, he doesn't elevate the play of his teammates or his team in general. And until I see that, it's just really, really tough to jump on board with any team that Russell Westbrook is on, not only winning, but being any type of championship or playoff contender. Spence, as far as John Wall goes, before his Achilles injury and before some of these major injuries, I was really loving John Wall's evolution in his game. His ability to shoot and take the ball to the basket and get other guys involved was incredible. I remember for a period of time, him and Marcin Gortat there in Washington and him and Beal. John Wall was really starting to elevate his game. And then this injury, of course, we haven't seen him at all in almost 2 seasons. I don't know that we've seen someone come back to all-star type form after an Achilles injury like this, not in my recent memory. Is there, with technology and with this many years off, I mean, is there anything you're hearing on Twitter or within your basketball community about how John Wall's looking, practicing or playing? I mean, I would love to see this guy at least come back to some of the form he was really accelerating at before this injury.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I mean, I think the guy's pretty low key. The only time I've ever interacted with him was at the Summer League. I think it was like the 3rd Summer League in Vegas. I had gone every year. I tried to get his autograph, and he wouldn't even look me in the eyes. I guess he did sign it, but I gave him the pen, and I gave him the book to sign, and he threw the pen. He didn't throw the pen. He gave the Sharpie back to me because I didn't take the top off for him. So if that's any indication of like how hard of a worker is, how much he cares, I don't know. But he'll have all the tools, right? They signed Christian Wood, which is a great signing. I think they still have Robert Covington, if I'm not mistaken. You got James Harden. DeMarcus Cousins is going to be an effective scorer. On defense, he's going to get absolutely just dominated, and they still have to figure out that problem. They needed someone like a JaVale McGee. But we need to talk about it. Technology is totally different than it was what it used to be. More and more players you're seeing. If I'm not mistaken, Rudy Gay also had an Achilles injury, and he almost looks not back to form, but he definitely is closer to an all-star form where he used to be. He can be successful in Houston if he puts the work in. That's for sure.
Spence, Robert Covington is now a member of the Portland Trailblazers, but
that's right.
They still have Eric Gordon. Austin Rivers is now in New York. So some different pieces around Harden and company over there in Houston. But you mentioned DeMarcus Cousins. He's battling back from a lot of injuries. We don't know what kind of player he'll be. I think Christian Wood will be a fantastic addition to that team. And we'll see how new coach Stephen Silas, what kind of nuances he brings to this Houston organization. They've been run and gun with Mike D'Antoni for well over 5 years, and it's something different now. And everybody's going to have to get on board to trying to kind of, I wouldn't say a rebuild since you still have Harden, but a lot of new faces and new places for Houston. So we'll see how that works out. But I tend to agree with you. I don't know that anybody kind of leaks out as the ultimate winner in this trade. And of course, time will always tell in that situation. I think in the East, Washington certainly has a chance to sneak into the playoffs if they stay healthy. But I just don't know that Russell Westbrook moves the needle very much for any organization from what we've seen out of him in the last 5-6 years. I know at times, statistically, he's been a triple-double machine that hasn't equated to wins, and especially playoff wins. So until it does, can't say that Russell Westbrook moves the needle. Spent some more NBA information. LeBron James signs a 2-year, $85 million deal. And then right after that, Anthony Davis, I believe, signs a max deal. And a lot of people, including myself, are very high on what the Lakers have done this offseason, signing point guard Dennis Schroeder, which I think was a very, very good deal. They just signed Marc Gasol, and I think they've gotten a lot better than they were this past year. And with the new coaching staff over in the other side of LA with the Clippers, I don't know that there's any team that stands out to me that can dethrone the Lakers from repeating as NBA champions. I mean, they look to be a much more solid force now this time than they were last year.
Yeah, no one from the East certainly has made enough moves. The fact that the Heat made the finals last season is a real embarrassment for them. Milwaukee traded for Drew Holiday, but they don't even know if they have commitment from Giannis Antetokounmpo yet. So I'm not really convinced anywhere. I mean, you got to say the Nets, maybe if they pull off the James Harden trade. But let's just look at the Lakers, like you said. You get Dennis Schroeder, you sign Montrezl Harrell for the mid-level exception, you get Marc Gasol. All these guys seem to fit what they're doing very well. All their positions seem to be upgraded, and we know, obviously, last year they won the NBA Finals. So you got to go down the list. Tell me who's had a better offseason, who's improved enough, and I can't really find it. And not only that, but the Lakers made sure to keep NBA Finals experience around their team with Marc Gasol, and that we know that was a huge advantage for them last year when it came to a strange season. You're in the middle of a pandemic, but these guys know they have been there and they've done that. And then they won the finals last season. So the top-down roster, the guys who are staying, all now have that experience. They didn't have it before. I think there's no way the Lakers don't win. The only thing the Clippers did was sign Ibaka, and I feel like you're asking too much of him to elevate them that high up to beat the Lakers.
Spence, let's put LeBron James' career kind of in perspective here for a quick minute. This guy drafted in 2003, so we're talking 18 years in the NBA, still playing at such a high level, coming off, I believe he was the finals MVP, was he not, in this most recent finals? Coming off a finals MVP in 18 seasons, still looking to be at the top of his game. Just talk about that for a second. I mean, does it even seem possible that after 18 years in the NBA, a guy that's never been ravaged by injury, playing at such a high level, continuing to compete for titles, went to like 11 or 12 straight finals, something like that, and hopping to his third team and rejuvenating them in less than 3 seasons. Put LeBron James' career in perspective just for a quick second, and if he's able to win back-to-back at this stage in his career, I mean, at some point, Spence, if LeBron gets to 7, 8 championships, I mean, we have to reevaluate the discussion of who the greatest player ever to put on a uniform is, do we not?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think he should definitely already be in that conversation. It's just hard for me to go into the MJ conversation because I didn't see him live. And I think watching sports live is like nothing else. But when it comes to LeBron James, this is a guy he's very smart. He's not playing the same way he did his first season, right? His first 3 years, he relies on his athleticism, a little bit of excitement, a couple threes, but definitely not part of his game. In the Miami Heat, he was a guy who lived in the post, who dominated down below because he didn't really have another center to take up that spacing. The Heat roster was beautiful in that sense. And now he knows, okay, I'm getting a little less strong. I may still have a lot of my athleticism, so I can rely on that. But now I can go to the 3-point line. And slowly but surely, it's not easy. And that's why I think it's so funny when people say guys are coming into the NBA that they'll develop a 3-point shot. It's actually pretty rare. What you see is what you get because it's just hard. You can change your shooting form. Okay, that's going to take you a year to get used to the shooting form. But LeBron has just perfected what he's already had, and he's also become a better passer as well. We know he's been doing that well his entire career, but now he was pretty much playing the point guard for the Lakers. Some of that pressure will be taken off with Dennis Schroeder, but still we know he's going to have the ball in his hands a whole bunch of the times. He's going to make sure guys get the ball in positive scoring positions, and that's how he's been so successful in year 18.
And Spence, I think LeBron sees championship 6 and 7 possibly in sight. I think he feels like there's an opportunity here with this squad to really put their foot on the throat of the NBA. They've got such a talented squad. Anthony Davis winning his first title, tons of confidence. You've got a couple guys that have not won a title that are new Lakers, that are really good players. I love the dog and Dennis Schroeder. I think he's a fantastic addition. Marc Gasol's got championship pedigree. You've got a great mix, Spence, of veteran leadership, championship experience, and then guys that can just get the job done. I think the Lakers this year are in as good a position as they've ever been to be favorites to win the NBA title. And I think LeBron James sees championships 6 and 7 in sight. And it doesn't have to be one of those Miami Heat speeches. I just think that they're right there. And I don't see the competition like I've seen it in the past as far as competing against the Lakers. The Lakers have upgraded so much, and everybody else is just that far behind. I think that wild card, like you said, will be the Brooklyn Nets. And I'm very curious to see how Kevin Durant comes back from his injury, Kyrie Irving, the mix there, because they do have some talent on that Brooklyn Nets squad. How the continuity will be with the two ball dominant scorers of Durant and Kyrie Irving to go with Jared Allen, LeVert, Dinwiddie, that'll be interesting. And Spence, if you're putting on your prognostication hat right now, would that be the finals you would want to see, Lakers Nets in 2021?
It would be the most entertaining for sure, unless we were talking about Milwaukee. But the thing is about the East is that there's so little juice over there. All the guys who have juice seem to be in the West. Like Kevin Durant has taken criticism his entire career because they say he can't be the guy. Kyrie Irving left because he thought he could be the guy and he wasn't. And I don't think that problem even gets fixed when you have someone like James Harden. Maybe that's an easy path to the finals in the East because there's not that much talent. But once you get into the finals and you face a guy like LeBron James, who we know has the juice, Anthony Davis proved this season that he was just playing on a garbage Pelicans team and that he definitely has the juice. And then you have Marc Gasol, who has had that kind of it factor for Memphis for basically my entire life growing up. So I still think the advantage goes to the Lakers there. But in terms of seeing it, I would love to see the Lakers Nets in the finals.
Dave Perry checking in. Dave, if you're still there, hopefully you can chime in a little bit. I don't know if you were at the AEW Winter is Coming yesterday. I'm in the middle of watching it now. The biggest live event that they put on TNT. This is wrestling I'm discussing right now. Dave, if you were there, jump in and let's talk about it here before we sign off. Continuing in NBA, though, Spence, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, the Milwaukee Bucks have made some moves around him. It is not set in stone that he's signed or re-signed yet with the Milwaukee Bucks. Is there a chance he's on the move? And if the answer is yes, where could his possible destinations be?
Yeah, everyone seems to be signing the long-term contracts. I think a lot of that comes from the pressure of a pandemic season, some uncertainty. They're like, I'll just take the money now. But you want to talk about Jason Tatum got a contract, De'Aaron Fox. We just talked about LeBron James, Anthony Davis. So what is the holdup for him? And they are pushed against the cap, and they just don't have a lot of talent. So there's something going on here that they got to figure out. I think they should have fired the GM a long time ago. They let Malcolm Brogdon go in order to keep George Hill, who they just got rid of for the Drew Holiday trade. So now it looks like they're walking back. Drew Holiday's making too much money, but they do have some sort of team there. It's just they don't have enough flexibility, and I think that really worries Giannis. One thing the Lakers did so successfully leading up to LeBron James, they were terrible, yes, but they made sure that they are ready for a star to come in at any time, and they were able to build up this team, and they did it in 2 seasons. They didn't make the playoffs that season, but they didn't sacrifice anything to make sure, just to make the playoffs. They said, I don't care. Either we're going to win a championship or we're not. And I think the Milwaukee Bucks have failed in that sense in saying, we need to make sure we're as good as possible every year. And we just know that you can't win a championship every year. That's not how sports works, unless you're like the Patriots or something. But that's very unique. If you go down the list, your window is so short, and I think they closed it too quickly. And now their backs are a little bit against the wall.
Spence, is there any chance that in Giannis's mind or at all that he wants to finish his career or stay with one team his entire career? Does that have any bearing on what he's thinking at all with his next decision here in the NBA?
I'm sure it's part of the decision, but the NBA's changed now. Like, there's no loyalty anymore. When it came, I think the longest tenured players for the very long time were Mike Conley and Marc Gasol. So I got lucky growing up in that my star players kind of stayed with the same team, but they were very few and far between. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Gordon Hayward, we know, left, and it was a little bit of salty. They're talking about James Harden, a perennial Hall of Famer or a perennial All-Star who will be a Hall of Famer if he continues down this path. Kevin Durant.
Chris Paul's been
Irving
with 5 or 6 teams.
Yeah, so I think he'll probably make a dramatic statement if he leaves and be like, oh, Milwaukee means so much, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't really care. They care about winning now in the NBA. That's kind of the whole spiel.
Spence, let's transition into the NFL. As we in week 12 that concluded yesterday? Is that right?
Yes, so I think so.
Week 12 concluded in Pittsburgh as the Baltimore Ravens on a Wednesday afternoon traveled to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. The Steelers win ugly 19-14. I would have loved for the Ravens to find a way to pull out that victory. It just wasn't to be. Head coach Mike Tomlin very upset with his team after that win. Not very surprising to me, Spence. This is a team that I'm completely shocked they're 11-0. They will not go undefeated. They will lose their first playoff game. I've said it for very, very many weeks. And you can't possibly think some of the performances they put on in the last month that they have any chance of beating anybody, Spence, come playoff time. They're going to get destroyed by anybody by at least 10 points. I mean, they sneak by a Cowboys team led by Garrett Gilbert, RG3, who couldn't complete a 10-yard pass. They allowed Trace McSorley to get within 5. I mean, they're awful. They can't run the ball. Their defense is overrated. Big Ben is not that great. I have no idea how they're 11-0. They better hope that they run the table, because if by any chance the Chiefs get that 1 seed and the Steelers have to play in the opening wild card round, bye-bye. See you later. Get on the bus and go home for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, because they're one and done, guaranteed. And I just hope I get a little bit of plus money, because I told you what I'm doing, Spence. And look, they're coming. They've got to play 3 games in 12 days. I don't know if my favorite comeback team, the Washington football team, beat them this coming week. But that 3rd game, I'm going to be looking at that very closely to be going against the Steelers. Hopefully it's not the Bengals now that they don't have Joe Burrow. But I know that the Bills are on the schedule for the Steelers. I will be playing the Bills in that matchup. But the Steelers will lose maybe twice this season. It would be great. I will come in gloating on Tuesday. If it's the Washington football team that upsets them, I'll be very happy. I think Antonio Gibson can run for 125 yards. I don't know that Alex Smith will go for a whole lot, but I think Washington, I told you, they're riding high with momentum. And how great would it be for them and for that organization to beat the undefeated Steelers on a short week? I would be elated if that happened. I'm going to sprinkle a little money line if I can pull together some crumbs this week. I'm taking Washington. And Spence, I mean, you've got to be kind of wiping your brow a little with this ugly win by the Steelers on Wednesday.
I care very little for the Steelers. I hate them, especially as a Raiders fan. I just try to look at them from an analytical sense. They're definitely going to have a tough matchup. They did beat a couple of good teams this season. The Ravens game obviously doesn't count without Lamar Jackson, although they did beat a full, pretty much healthy Ravens team at the time earlier in the season. They had the big win against
they got lucky. They were outgained by almost double.
The Titans game, you got to say, was at least a little impressive.
Okay.
So that was their big win of the season. Whether or not they can do it twice, I don't know, because they'll most likely have to face them in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get bounced in the first round, but this is a vulnerable team. They don't look fantastic, although it sounds weird to say that for an undefeated team. But there are teams with worse records that have definitely shown that they look a little more explosive. They look a little more playoff ready. I think that's probably the biggest hurt point for this team, is that they don't really look playoff ready, because they've been playing bottom feeder teams, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Browns to an extent they always own. So we'll have to see. Everyone, their teams are terrible. So I don't know. The Redskins, I don't see it happening. I think Alex Smith is definitely prone to a few turnovers at least. That's how I feel about the Steelers.
Yes, Spence, I'm hoping that with some of the listeners in the chat here, that we can pull a little pool together to go against the Steelers week 1 or round 1 of the playoffs. If we can get up to $1,000 to go money line against them.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'll find some kind of compensation for everybody that pulls in. If it's a loss, which I'm willing to give my stamp of approval that it will not be. And if we can find a way to pull that together, everybody will be handsomely compensated. So let's get the rest stop pool together to go against the Steelers round 1 of the NFL playoffs. Spence, college football, college basketball, continuing to have delays, to have cancellations. Are we going to get through an entire season? Are we going to be able to crown a champion in college football with what's going on here? I mean, are we even going to get 10 games from any of these programs?
No, and honestly, I'm going to say that sports are an absolute joke right now, especially when it comes to these poor college kids who are trying to make a name for themselves, are trying to make it into the pro leagues. They see how much money is getting thrown around. But sorry, cut out there. But like I've been saying all season long, these kids' health is being sacrificed just because we want to make money off them, because of March Madness, because of all this garbage. What does crowning a champion even mean, honestly? What do you like? Ohio State's still in the top 4, and they're like barely looking to play half of their season. So what are we supposed to make of something like that? I have no idea. I don't like any part of it, and it just looks grosser and grosser as the season goes on. V continues to cancel games, and it's not a good product.
Spence, let's go ahead and get into it. It's Thursday, and our NFL pick segment. We will pick every single game against the spread here in week 13. We will again be picking against the Circa Sports Million Contest lines. Spence, let's start it off in the NFC North. The Detroit Lions traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. Mitchell Trubisky back in the starting lineup for the Bears. Lions freshly off firing head coach and general manager. Matt Patricia, head coach. Bob Quinn, general manager. Bears a 3-point home favorite in this one. Do the Lions find a way to get some fire and rejuvenation with Matt Patricia gone? But on the road, it's a tough place to win, tough place to play in Chicago. Who do you like? Lions, Bears. Bears 3-point favorites at home.
Well, we've talked about it all season long. That new head coach juice really kicks in when you fire somebody. Happened with the Falcons earlier this season. I got burned on that, so hopefully I'm not going to get burned again. I am going to go the Lions here. Everyone's going to be fighting for their job, especially because the Lions truly do have that many skilled players, and I'm sure they all want to make sure they get the next contract or don't want to get cut from the team. I'm going to expect the Bears. First of all, the Bears are a bad team too, so why couldn't the Lions win this game, even if they did have Matt Patricia?
Spence, I really want to agree with you because I love the philosophy of riding high off of a just fired head coach. This situation reeks to me. I don't like the travel. I don't like the fact that the Lions are quite banged up. And I told you on Tuesday, I'm still a Mitchell Trubisky backer. And I think he has a really good game this week. And I think that the Bears get the win and get the cover. Give me the Bears at home, and I'm riding Mitchell Trubisky.
God bless you, Brad.
Next game. I usually hate the Bears, but that's under Nick Foles. Trubisky, I'm in. So here we go. Next game, Spence. The Bengals travel to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Pretty big number here. Dolphins 11.5-point favorites on the Circa Sports Million Contest line. Spence, what are your thoughts here? Dolphins 11.5 against the Bengals with no Joe Burrow.
It's hard because the Dolphins have covered big spreads this season when they play bad teams. I don't know. The Bengals seem to be playing football. I know it sounds weird to say that out loud, but I don't know. 11 points seems like a little too much for me. I feel like I'm going to take the plus points here and just say they win an ugly game by like 8 points or something like that with a garbage touchdown at the end of the game.
Dave, writing Mitchell Trubisky is what I call oral with my wife. Wow. Dave coming through. If we had the drum roll, I would hit it for Dave Perry right now. He's on fire tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Spence, I can't do it with the Bengals. I saw an ugly performance by the Dolphins winning by 17 against the Jets this past week. I've got to believe that the Bengals, with whoever's going to be their quarterback, Brandon Allen, I just can't imagine that they are going to stay close in this game. I think they're not a well-coached football team. Without Joe Burrow, they're a very bad football team. Give me the Dolphins, and I'm going to lay the big number, 11.5. Next game, Spence, you're a big fan of the Indianapolis Colts. They are a road 3.5-point favorite against the Houston Texans, another team you're a big fan of. 3.5, the Indianapolis Colts on the road against the Texans. Spence, I feel like I know which way you're going here.
I'm going to try to go against recency bias and say that the Texans look like this great football team. The Colts are going to be pretty upset about the loss. I know this is a divisional game. I hate divisional games, but I'm going to go the Colts here. I think they are the better team, period. There's no debating that. They should be able to take care of business, and I think they'll do it in pretty big fashion. I think this is going to be a blowout for the Colts.
Spence, again, we're on opposite sides. Somebody's going to start off this week strong. I got to go Texans here. Why? I'm not sure. I love Deshaun Watson. That's a big reason. Phillip Rivers has this toe injury. Not that it matters. He doesn't really move around the pocket. His arm looks deader and deader each week that I see him. They're going to have to bench him at some point, I believe, if they want any hope of winning a playoff game.
No, come on. What are you talking?
Yeah.
He's had a few great weeks, to be honest with you.
That arm is looking softer and softer.
He won them the Packers game, did he not? And that happened like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks is not what you've done for me lately. I think that arm has seen its better days. That toe, that arm, God, Rivers, man, I don't know how he's going to make it through the whole season. I think the young, spry Deshaun Watson, I think the Texans actually blow out the Colts this week. 10 or more. Texans get a big win outright against the Indianapolis Colts. The banged up Phillip Rivers in the Indianapolis Colts. Spence, the next game on the matchup, the Jacksonville Jaguars travel to US Bank Stadium to take on the Vikings. Minnesota Vikings have won 4 out of 5. They did it in miraculous fashion last week, barely beating the Carolina Panthers 28-27. Vikings laying a big number 10 here. No chance the Vikings cover 10 points. They are not a good enough team to be favored by 10 against anybody. Give me Jacksonville. Give me Jacksonville on the money line to win. Jaguars win 27-23.
It's going to sound very similar when we talk about the Raiders game coming up here in a second, but no, I don't think they're going to beat them. But Jacksonville has been competitive this season. We know that. And the Vikings have proven to nobody that they can blow a team out. So I'm also going to go the Jaguars plus the 10.
We're on the same side for once, Spence. And this is the game you're looking forward to as you are trying to put the kibosh on my 0-16 Jets ticket. The Raiders travel to MetLife Stadium to take on the Jets and Sam Darnold. The Raiders only an 8.5-point favorite on the Circa Sports Million contest line. Raiders, Jets minus 8.5 against the winless New York Jets.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jets here. I think they win. I know that's bold, but I don't think the Raiders can beat anybody by that many points at this point in the season. It's been a little figured out. As long as you cover Darren Waller and just basically ask him to throw it to Henry Ruggs down the field, there is no offensive game. Now, you got to hope that Josh Jacobs doesn't fumble the ball 60 times like he did, but Derek Carr is good for a fumble in the pocket every game. The Jets aren't a good football team, but the Raiders aren't as good as anyone has been saying that they are either. And the fact that I'm getting over a touchdown here, I think the Jets can cover for sure, if not win outright.
The Dolphins, who did not play well last week, beat the Jets by 17. If the Dolphins can beat the Jets by 17, the Raiders can beat the Jets by 4 touchdowns. Give me the Raiders 34-7. Raiders.
Wasn't that the philosophy against the Falcons too, that the Raiders were going to beat up a Todd Gurley-less Julio Jones team? And look, they got blown the heck out. So that argument, I think, is invalid.
Quite possibly Spencer the Wiz, but I think the Raiders get back on the winning track this week, and I think they roll the Jets. The next matchup, an NFC South showdown between the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. The aforementioned Falcons, who got a win against the Raiders last week, are a home 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to say this was an anomaly. The Falcons played what could be their best game of the season. They're absolutely not even close to as good as that. I think that's their 4th win on the season, though. So they're trying to peek in on being 2 games out of a playoff berth. But they're not good. The Saints beat them handily just a few weeks ago. They'll beat them handily again in Atlanta. Give me the Saints minus 2.5, Spencer the Wiz.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Julio Jones playing in this game. I could really see them winning. I'm not even a huge fan of Taysom Hill, but the Raiders are a terrible football team, and that's why the Falcons were able to win that game. But New Orleans has really ramped up their defense, and they seem to play especially well against Atlanta. I'm also going to take the Saints here in this matchup.
Spencer the Wiz with me on the Saints there. Next one, Spence, Cleveland Browns. I believe they 8-3 or 9-3 on the season, Spence?
I think it's 8-3, if I'm not mistaken.
A very impressive record by the Browns. They travel to Tennessee to take on the Titans, who have got a couple of very nice wins here lately. The Titans will be a 5.5-point favorite at home. Believe it or not, Spence, I think this is too big a number. I think the Browns lose, but they cover. Give me the Brownies plus 5.5 here.
Yeah, these are 2 teams that like to run the football a lot, and I think they're both going to be successful at running the football. I think Derrick Henry isn't going to have as big of a game as he might want to, with Myles Garrett, I believe, being back in the lineup now, and Nick Chubb is going to equally have probably as good a game. It's going to be one of the more entertaining running battles, so if you like running backs, this will be the game to watch. And I could definitely see this being a field goal game, if not like a 5-point game, something weird like that. I'll go with the Browns as well.
Wow, me and Spence on the same side there. The New York Football Giants, they travel to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. The Seahawks allowed the Eagles to scratch and claw within 6 last week. They're at home here. The Giants will be without Daniel Jones. Colt McCoy will get to start for the Giants. I think that's disaster for the Giants trying to cover this number. Give me Seattle laying the big number, minus 10. I'll take the Seahawks.
Oh, wow. That feels like a big number. But yeah, Colt McCoy is a giant piece of garbage. If they did have Daniel Jones, I would say they could actually probably win this game. Seattle's defense, though, has been gaining a little momentum, which bodes well for them to cover in this game. But without Saquon, without Daniel Jones, how are they going to put up any points? And we know for sure that Seattle's going to be putting some touchdowns on the field, going to be taking advantage of a beat-up team. I don't usually like taking big points, but Seattle should be able to cover pretty easily.
With you there, Spence. Spence, is there any chance Russell Wilson is still in the conversation for league MVP? Or is he just too far behind at this point to Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I don't know. No, he should for sure still be in there. It's not like they're starting to lose a bunch of football games. They're still winning.
That's true. Big number. We both like the Seahawks here. NFC West showdown in the next matchup. The LA Rams, one of the more inconsistent teams in the NFL, travel to Phoenix to take on the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams, a road 2.5-point favorite here on the Circus Sports Million contest number. Spence, this number seems way off to me. Why are the Rams a road favorite here? It's saying to me that there's something wrong with Kyler Murray. I hate doing this, but the line is screaming something to me. So I'm going to take the Rams minus the 2.5.
I agree with you. I think the Rams are inconsistent, which means they have bad weeks and then they bounce back and have good weeks. They took a horrible loss to the 49ers, let alone the spread. Football teams don't care about the spread. They care about winning football games. And in this case, these are two of the most inconsistent football teams, and they're clashing together. But I think the Rams, on paper at least, are a much more coherent team. They should be able to. This is a game that I think on their calendar, they're like, okay, we lost to the 49ers. This is a must-win game. And I just don't think the Arizona has that mentality of like, we want to go somewhere in the playoffs. I think they're just like, hey, let's see if we can win every game because we're talented. So I'm also going to take the Rams here, minus 2.5.
Spence, these are two teams. If the playoffs started today, they would both be in the NFC wild card. And it's hard to trust either one of these teams. But it's going to be a really big game because the Bears, the Vikings on the outside looking in, one game behind the Cardinals in the win column for that last playoff berth. So if the Vikings can find a way to beat Jacksonville, the Rams beat Arizona. Hey, now we've got a little bit of action there for that last wild card spot. So it's a really big game for Arizona, one that I feel like they have to win. But the Rams also, if the Vikings both win, they'll only be one game behind the Rams if the Rams lose. So a lot of playoff implications going into week 13 in some of these matchups here. Spence, the next one has the Eagles traveling to Lambeau to take on the Packers. The Packers 8.5-point favorites. The Eagles get worse every single week. We've talked about the discussion as a time to sit Carson Wentz on the bench and give Jalen Hurts an opportunity. Is this the week he gets more snaps, or is this another week where Eagles fans are disappointed by the performances of Carson Wentz in a division that's very winnable in the NFC East?
Yeah, it's just the thing is that the division is technically still up for grabs. They can still go in there and win the division. So it sounds weird to go into your project and just say, oh, okay, we'll start the project now, when in reality, if you kind of won out your games for the season, or if at least you beat your divisional opponents, you might be hosting a playoff game in like 4 to 5 weeks. So I'm going to say no. I say we don't see Jalen Hurts at all this season unless it's the last game of the season and they're just that far out. And even then, I just feel like there's some sort of weird pride going on. I'm just, the Eagles just don't look like a football team. It's kind of sad that a team that had just won the Super Bowl now looks like this.
Spence, I mean, don't look now. A couple weeks ago, it looked like the Giants could be the front runner to win this division. Now with Daniel Jones out, there might not be a win in close proximity for the Giants. Who's the favorite to win this NFC East? It's wide open. Is it the Cowboys?
No, I don't. They don't look like they can win a football game. It's got to be the Redskins now, right?
Yeah, I like the way that sounds. The Washington football team, the Believers pick many weeks ago.
I keep saying the Redskins. I can't get that out of my mind.
It's okay, Spence. Many weeks ago, the Believer was on this train. Spence, who else was on that train besides me at that time? I've got to be the only one in the sports landscape. 8 weeks ago, I said it, Spence. Before
you kind of got lucky with like 2 injuries. I mean, Alex, I even said it too. I said Alex Smith gives them the best chance to win the division, but I didn't think he'd find a way to get on the field until obviously we knew Dwayne Haskins probably wasn't going to finish the season just because he's not a very good football player. But I thought they were going to ride the wave with the second string, but he got hurt. And now they're seeing Alex Smith for what he is. And this is a guy who can bring teams to the playoffs. We know that.
Spence, who would have guessed 8 weeks ago, no Dak Prescott, the Eagles can't win a game, Daniel Jones hurt, Thanksgiving win for Alex Smith. I couldn't have wrote it any better as the president of the Alex Smith fan club, and I'm looking for the Washington football team to continue to roll. Next game on the list, Spence, we were both on the Packers against the Eagles. The New England Patriots travel to SoFi Stadium to take on the LA Chargers. Man, what can you say about the Chargers? They can't figure out a way to win a game. Head coach Anthony Lynn is for sure on the way out by the end of the season. The Patriots, they found a way to win against the Cardinals last week. Do they find a way again traveling to the West Coast? They're a 1-point favorite against the Chargers. What are your thoughts here, Spence?
Yeah, I would say a high-octane offense is just not a very good matchup for the Patriots. If they're able to kind of dig into the trenches, play a close game, but that's not the problem for the Chargers. The problem is defensively and being able to stay in games. They're going to put up scores, and that puts a lot of pressure on Cam Newton. I don't know, 28 points on the board, and I don't know the last time they've really done that except for the Raiders, who have one of the worst defenses in the league. Well, you can say equally the same for the Chargers, but I think the Chargers can easily put up 31 points in this game, and I don't think New England's going to be able to catch up with them. So I think this is a pick 'em. If I'm not mistaken, I like the Chargers, although I hate saying that because Chargers. How many times have they saying that because like games they're supposed to, or like games they're supposed to, when it looks like the game was in their hands. When it looks like the game was in their hands.
Spence, I really want to go with the Chargers here. Spence, I really want to go with the Chargers. They've just proven time and time again. They've just proven time and time again, and even games that they can't win games. I'll trust Bill Belichick. I'll trust Bill Belichick. Give me the Patriots minus the one. Give me the Patriots minus even though I'm not in love with it. Even though I'm not in love with it, I the Chargers that much. The Chargers. The next game on the matchup, the Broncos. The next game on the matchup, Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. Arrowhead to take on the Broncos should have some quarterbacks back in the room against the Circus Sports Million Contest line. Chiefs are a touchdown favorite. 14-point favorite here. Man, the Chiefs on covers.com it says they're 6-5 against the spread. I can't believe that to be true, but apparently it is. The Chiefs were up by 3+ scores the entire game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they found a way to lose. I don't know. This is crazy to me. The Chiefs are so frustrating to watch. Can they cover 14 points? They should be able to destroy the Broncos. Fool me again. Give me the Chiefs minus 14. Spencer, you there?
Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. They were able to blow out the Broncos earlier this season. They had a big line and they were able to cover it quite comfortably. But you do have Drew Lock back. I don't know. I mean, they have the close game against Carolina, although I guess technically they've been competitive. You have the 2 close games with the Raiders. Those are 2 divisional games. I'm going to go for the Broncos here, plus 14. I don't think there's any way they win this game at all. They aren't good enough as a football team. But divisional games are always funky, and I know the Broncos aren't going to want to lose by 20 plus points twice this season against a divisional opponent. I think they got enough pride to carry them like a 10-point loss.
Man, I really don't want to lay. I really don't want to lay bigger number. Gonna have to do it here. The Broncos, another inconsistent team, but I guess we'll find out. So are we on the same side here, Spence? Chiefs minus 14.
No, I'm taking the Broncos. Taking the
Broncos.
10-point loss. Yeah,
probably right there. This is ridiculous. The Chiefs. I mean, how can they be up 17 the whole game and then not finish off the Bucs? Allow them to stay within 3. It's mind-boggling. Next game, Spence Bills travel. Bills are traveling. I believe to Phoenix. Take on the 49ers. But I don't know how this is going to work. Arizona's also playing at home. I know the 49ers can't play in Santa Clara anymore because of the rules and regulations. This one's a pick 'em. Bills at 49ers. I got to take the Bills. I like the Bills. I think they're going to position themselves to be a team to be reckoned with playoffs. I'll take the Bills as a pick 'em.
Yeah, I feel like a chump here. This is so weird, right? You have I know they had, I guess, a decent win against the Rams last week, but we've also seen them just not look good. I mean, Nick Mullins isn't a great quarterback, and the Bills look like they actually want to go far in the playoffs. So for sure, the Bills should blow them out of the water here. Now, if this rolling it back last season, I'd probably be on the 49ers side. But Josh Allen, after that bye week, they look like they really have their They look like they're going to want to challenge teams like the Chiefs, even though I mean that was a weather game. So I'd love to see what a real matchup between them would look like. So give me the Bills here.
Yeah, I got to go Bills here, even though the 49ers seem to win games that they're not supposed to. And they're on the outside looking in for a playoff berth now that they won last week. So they're going to be in the mix. Kyle Shanahan's a solid head coach. He shows it every single week. As the 49ers, it doesn't matter who they've lost, they still find a way to be competitive every week. Last game on the slate, I think this one's scheduled to be played on Tuesday. The Washington football team traveled to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Steelers, who just won ugly yesterday against a divisional opponent, the Ravens. At home, they're a 7.5-point favorite against the Washington football team. Spence, I called it. I'm going to say this is the first loss of the season. The football team of Washington gets a win here, and they upset the Steelers. Give me Washington plus 7.5.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be like, oh, look, they played an ugly game, and it was a close game against the Ravens with Robert Griffin III. No way, Washington isn't closer in this game. I'm going to say this recency bias. Alex Smith has thrown a few ugly interceptions this year, and if he's going to throw a few more, it's going to be to Mika Fitzpatrick. It's going to be to Joe Hayden. If their offensive line is going to see some struggles, it's going to be against guys like T.J. Watt, against Bud Dupree. Those two guys have the highest sacks between a pairing this season. And I know you're not a big fan of Ben Roethlisberger, but they are able to connect on the deep ball every once in a while. He's going to have his biggest challenge this season. It doesn't sound correct to say because Redskins don't have a great record, but they do have the best secondary in the league. This could be indicative of what we're going to see in the playoffs. So if Ben Roethlisberger doesn't play well in that game, there's going to be some really big problems here. I'm just going to say the Steelers cover the 7.5 point spread, though.
I see a pick six in Ben Roethlisberger's future on Tuesday against the Washington football team. And this is a dual edition of the Rest Stop and Delivering Sports at Spencer the Wiz. Follow him on Twitter at Spencer the Wiz. I'm Brad the Believer. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter at Brad the Believer. If you miss any part of this show, make sure you go to LandryFootball.com, Apple, iTunes, Audio Boom, and search Landry Football Conference Call on the Rest Stop underneath there. And as we finish up, I'm going to bring on to the stream, Dave Perry. Dave, I want to bring you on because you were at the Winter is Coming AEW event last night. Talk for a minute about that. It was a fantastic show. I'm in the middle of watching it right now. Tell me your thoughts on it. And were you cold? Were you cold? 40-degree Jacksonville weather.
It was pretty damn cold. I wasn't expecting. Well, I was dumb because I wore flip-flops. But yeah, it was cold. It was a great show. The I don't know how far you got into it, but I'm sure you've already heard the surprise return. That was like kind of be there live. I will say, for all the people about like the Corona and stuff, and I know you guys are Spence touching on the thing with college football and stuff like that. But they do a really good job of making sure that it's as safe as possible. Like you can't get into the stadium without they do a facial scan, like with your temperature and the mask and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a safe thing. So it's kind of good to get out with my son and do something outside of the house and all that. But the show was great. Kenny Omega winning, and then you didn't really pick up on this at the show. But when I came back and watched it at home, the little nugget they.
Hey everybody, sorry I had to cut that off. Yeah, this was a dual episode between the Rest Stop and Delivering Sports. I was studying for my finals. This is my finals week. We'll be back to the live shows next week, and hopefully I'll be able to play this out for myself because I am on the final countdown of my college career, so I do apologize for that. But thank you so much, guys, for listening to this edition of the Delivering Sports Show. And there it is, right? So I appreciate all my listeners, everybody who supports me. I'll catch you guys next week, and I'll probably sound a lot less tired, a lot more excited. I'll be a graduated student, and I can definitely focus on my career. So I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Oh, world famous radio shopping show weekdays on 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas and KSHP.com.